Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello. How are you guys doing tonight? This is Dr. Christiana Latimer here, and I am super excited to be able to hang out with you. This is day 4 of me going live all this week. We're almost to the end of the road here. We skipped the halfway mark yesterday, and I only have one more live left after tonight. But welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. As a little recap of what I'm talking about, these lives are all about how to develop a value-driven lifestyle, a core value-driven lifestyle. And so the whole week I have been sharing on how to identify your core values, how to define them, how to recognize any imbalances that you may have in your life, and where to start the conversation with God on, okay, Lord, I know I got multiple areas that are not exactly where I want them to be, but where should I actually focus and where should I start first? So I really highly encourage you, if you have not seen the other lives, to please go back and rewatch them. If you need to binge watch them, whatever you need to do, because they are coming down after my birthday tomorrow. So after my birthday on Sunday, I will be taking all of these lives off of here. So this would be the time to go back, rewatch day 1, day 2, day 3. Now we're at day 4, and then tomorrow actually is going to be a bonus live that I will do that's called Finding Peace in Uncertainty. But for tonight, we are still heavily devoted to focusing on developing practices now on how to have a value-driven life. Not a life that's driven by other people's obligations and responsibilities and needs, but a life that is driven by the value system, your personal value system that you learn how to develop and cultivate with the Lord. And so this live series has been very practical in nature. Today is going to be no different. I'm going to give you 5 areas that you can, or 5 steps, I should say, for you to be able to practice developing this type of lifestyle. It is so easy to allow your life to be driven by everyone's needs, wants, their desires, their responsibilities, and you just piling them on, especially if you're a mother, a wife. Honestly, y'all, if you are single and don't got no kids, you can still have a lifestyle that is driven by trying to meet other people's expectations versus taking the time with God to cultivate what is He asking of you personally. What treasures has He placed on the inside of you? What values has He given you, and giving you the grace and the strength to walk out those values in spite of if they do not agree with other people around you, even if it's people that you love. And that's very difficult. I won't say all of us, but most of us want our parents to be proud or want the people around us to be pleased with us. And sometimes that just doesn't always happen, but you'll end up waking up one day being 45 and feeling like I have never lived my life at all the way I would desire to live it. I don't even know what I would want to do. My 50th birthday is coming, and I don't even know what I want to do for my own 50th birthday because I spend so much of my time dedicated to other people that I don't even have an idea or a thought or a clue of what I want for myself. And that's not the will of the Lord. I have shared that over and over these last few days in these lives, that I just don't believe that's the will of God for you. And so we have to be purposeful. We have to be intentional to create space for God to speak. But we have to be asking the right questions. We actually have to go before the Lord with the right questions so that we can get the answers that we really need to have. So for tonight, I have five of these practical steps that I want you to consider. Now, throughout the week, at the very beginning, we talked all about how to identify your core values. Like, what are your core values? I told you that there's a sheet of like 250 core values that you could go through. And at the end of the exercise that I gave, you needed to emerge with 3 to 5 core values that you're like, okay, this is what I stand for. This is who I am on the inside. And now I just need to learn how to develop a lifestyle that supports who I really am and what I really desire and what God has really put on the inside of my heart. I also shared the fact that we have to consider and look at your core beliefs. So you may say that you value honesty, but you really believe I can't be honest with people because they'll be upset. So somewhere in there's a disconnect between what you say you really value, but your core belief about yourself is off. And so that has to be addressed. Also, we moved on and talked about in the I want to say, was it our last live? Yeah, it was the last one yesterday that we really talked about imbalances in our life and setting boundaries, and why setting boundaries was just so important, but paying attention to the imbalances that we have in our life and how to discover those as well through some different exercises. So those were all things that we talked about before, and why when you have a value-based lifestyle, your legacy is stronger, your well-being and your emotional health is just way more stable, and you're able to allow your core to be so centered and so positioned well that regardless of what external circumstances look like, your internal environment is at peace and has harmony, regardless of what you may see happening. We talked about what you see versus what you focus on, and not allowing what's happening externally to dictate what's going on with you internally. Tonight, if you want to grab some notes on this one, the top 5 things that help you, or that you have to practice so you can create your core values. Yay, I have my list, and yay, these are the things I know I believe. But if you don't make a practice of developing, training yourself, and cultivating those values on a day-to-day basis in a circumstance by circumstance situation, they will just be 3 to 5 really cool words that you said that you believe in that you just do not walk out, because you have to make a practice of actually implementing these into your life. So the very first one is going to be self-reflection. It is important to examine and take inventory of your soul space, your internal life, the choices and decisions that you were making on a regular basis. Some people do a practice where when they go to bed at night, they just check in with themselves and they examine the day. You know, what conversations did I have? What were the things I did well? What were the things I did not do well? Brain dumping. I'm a huge component of journaling, so maybe instead of it just being lived in my head, I'm going to take 7 minutes and just dump my brain out on a piece of paper. It's not meant to really organize or anything like that. It's literally just to take all the thoughts that are in my head and pour them out on paper. And at a later date, I will typically go through and review, what does my thought life look like? Because sometimes we don't even really know our thoughts and how crazy they may be, or it could be all over the place until we put them on a piece of paper and take time to take inventory of what you were thinking. I do the same thing with something called a heart dump, where I literally dump my heart out on a sheet of paper and review what's happening in my heart space. What does God have to say about what's happening in my heart space? What do I have to say about what's happening in my heart space? A lot of times we are just so got to go. We've got our routines, we've got our rhythms, and we just don't take time to do self-reflection. And if we're honest, some people don't want to see what's in their thoughts. They don't want to see what's really in their heart, because deep down they know it's probably not what they desire to see, so they just ignore it. And it's like, I don't have time for that, and they just push it all down and keep moving. But eventually, whatever's going on internally, it's going to bubble up to the surface, and it's better to have a level of control by consistently doing self-checks and self-reflection than it is to just wait until it spills out on people or spills out over you. Some people are explosive or they're implosive. So self-reflection. If you have these core values that you've discovered about yourself over this past week, you want to say, hey, am I actually were these values present today? Did I see myself operating in these values, or was I operating just at a routine? That's the first one. The second one, which I don't always tell people to do this, but I feel like in this season, and it may be important for some people in order to help create a practice of putting in their core value system, and that is to set specific goals. I'll talk another time of why I'm not always a huge fan of goal setting, because I've just seen God blow my mind more the years that I have not set goals versus the years that I have. But in the beginning, when I was developing this type of lifestyle, setting up specific goals was really important. It may be simple as, if you know you're a people pleaser and you say yes to everything all the time, that you set a specific goal to say, you know what, I'm going to make a point this week to say no 3 times. I'm going to say no to something that I could do, but I really, really don't want to do. And I'm just doing it out of habit. I'm not doing it because my heart is connected to it. I'm not doing it because I feel led by the Lord. I'm doing it because I'm just used to being a doer. I want you to set a specific goal of 3 times this week. I'm just going to say no. And one of the things that I offered yesterday in the boundaries conversation was that if you say no to working a particular event that you normally would work, take that time and set it aside for the Lord and say, you know what, usually I would spend these 3 hours, helping clean or host or this or that. I'm going to say no to this event because I really am kind of tired, but I'm going to open up space for God to speak to me, for me to write, for me to read a book, for me to just sit in quiet meditation and just enjoy myself and relax and to rest. So don't just say no. Make sure you're saying no and being purposeful with whatever the time that you are opening in by not overcommitting yourself. Number 3 is, it's going right up to this other one, is creating the boundaries. The way you create this as a practice is that you actually set the boundary. So don't just say, oh yes, I'm going to have boundaries. So many people say, yeah, I know I need boundaries, and I'm going to say no next time. But what kind of boundaries? What are you saying no to? What limits are you putting on yourself? Like, be clear on what that boundary is, and then be mindful to communicate that boundary to the people that is necessary to communicate it to. I'm not saying you have to make this grand announcement to everyone, but if you know the boundary you're getting ready to set is going to affect someone that's close in your life or something that's in your schedule. Like, for instance, I just created a boundary around my time because I recognized, I was like, I have just got to make sure I'm spending more time with Legacy now that I'm working a gazillion hours a week. It's very different for us, but I have to create a boundary of, I have X amount of hours that are dedicated to Legacy, nobody else. It just is what it is. Do I need to tell everybody in the world that? No, but do I need to tell the people that could affect in my schedule, that I am blocking off this type of time now because I'm creating that boundary? Then yes, I need to communicate that boundary. So we'll make boundaries, but then we don't communicate them, and then we wonder why they don't stick. Communication is key, making sure you do that. Number 4 is seeking support. So often we just want to do it ourselves. Okay, I'll just read that book. Okay, I'll watch that video. I don't know how many books we have in Audible or things that we have, workshops that we've signed up for that are like a DIY type of situation where we'll just walk ourselves through. But the reality of it is, I'm sure most of us, if you've done any type of personal development, spiritual development, you've got workshops and classes and books that you have never reread or even read through the whole time. You didn't go through the whole video series because you get caught up in your day-to-day. But when you make a point to seek support where you have to show up physically, face-to-face, virtual, whatever the case may be, the way you come to the table is just a lot different than when I can just lay in my bed at 2:00 and watch the video, then fall asleep and forget about it and not actually implement the things that you are learning. Most of these things are very common sense, but implementation is very weak because when you don't have someone in your corner real time, coaching you, counseling, supporting you, and saying, yes, that's awesome, say no, it's okay, it's really hard in the development period and in the training period to have these type of things to stick. You can do it. There's lots of people who love to DIY everything, but it really is much better if you can seek support, even if it's just a friend who you're allowing to help keep you accountable, that you can have these conversations with. And the last one is to reflect and adapt. Some of us are so rigid where it's just like, okay, it has to be step A, B, C, and D, and it has to go in this order. And then when B gets a little wonky and C looks like it's not going to happen and D just is like totally off of the calendar now, we're so frustrated and we just feel like it's not working. Learn how to become more flexible and adaptable with yourself when you're working through these things. Internal work is difficult. It's difficult work if you really do it the right way, but it's so freeing and it's so healing if you allow yourself to reflect and adapt. And the funny thing is, steps 1 and step 5 really kind of mirror each other, because step 1 was all about what? Self-reflection. And now I'm saying step 5 is reflect and adapt. But I can't change something that I don't take time to, once again, take inventory on. So if I'm trying to lose weight and I'm on a weight loss or weight release program, however you want to say it, I don't know how well this is working for me if I don't reflect on like how the meal plan is working. Am I gaining? Am I losing? Am I at least losing inches? Am I not losing inches? Like, you have to be willing to change it if it's not working. It's like, I was trying to do the whole fat-free thing and that just doesn't work. So I needed to adapt and go to more of a keto lifestyle where it's like full of fat and full of protein, but that works better for me than what I was doing before. But you would not know that if you don't take the time to reflect and adapt. It's the same thing with your internal world. If you figure out, like, I thought that honesty was a core value for me, but I've really been trying to put in practice, or being more transparent, because I thought transparency was a core value. And the more that I'm trying to do that, I'm just not getting anywhere with it. I've given it 3 months. I've given it 6 months. I've given it a year. I'm not saying in 3 weeks change something. You got to give something some time. But after 6 months to a year and you're like, yeah, it's just not resonating with me, then you need to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate, is transparency truly a core value, or is it a value that you appreciate? There's 200 and something values. Most of them, you're going to appreciate them, have an appreciation for them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's your personal core. So being willing to go back and readapt is important. It's important. So those are the 5. Those are your 5 practical steps. I really had more than 5, y'all, but I was like, Christiana, Dr. Latimer, do not just throw everything in the kitchen sink to people. Like, don't do that. So the top 5 things that you can do to begin to create these practices are: number 1, self-reflection. Number 2, set specific goals. But these are internal goals. These are not goals like, I want to lose 20-pound goals, or I want to save $300 goals. These are more based around characteristics and a value system goals and how you're going to implement them in your day-to-day than it is like hardcore materialized goals. Number 3, you want to create your boundaries and communicate them. Please don't just create a boundary. You need to create it and communicate it, even if you don't think it's necessary. Sometimes over communication can be better than no communication whatsoever. But allow your words to be seasoned with grace. We talked about that yesterday. Number 4, seek support. Please allow yourself permission not to always want to do everything alone. Where it's like, I'm a self-starter. I like to do things by myself. Seek support. Get somebody in your corner who's going to be your encourager, your cheerleader, the person who's going to challenge you on your thought process. I love when I'm working with people and they send me their brain dumps or their heart dumps so that I can actually see, what are you thinking, what are you feeling, and how are you processing certain information in your life. And a lot of times someone else can have insight into what's going through that you just can't see because you're just too close to it. So be willing to invest in yourself in that way and seek support. And then lastly, reflect and adapt. Don't just reflect, adapt, make the changes, and don't beat yourself up if you have to make a change. Making a change is not a problem. Rediscovering where you are on a regular basis is important. So many people just take way too many years, decades will go by and they have not checked in with themselves. You need to check in. You are not operating on the same system that you had when you were 22. Some of your dreams and desires may be the same, but a lot of them are not. And you need to recheck in with yourself. There's nothing wrong with learning who you are today. What are the things that make you tick? What are the things that bring you pleasure? And making it a priority to build those into your life. I don't care how many kids you have. I don't care if you got a husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, I don't care what you got going on, you can make time to be able to live a lifestyle that is driven by your value system, that you sit down with God and let him help you reveal. I'm not talking about making vision boards and staring at something that you don't have actually deep down in your own heart. I'm not talking about that. This is not that. This is truly getting to know yourself, really giving God space to speak to you about the core value system that he's already placed on the inside of you. And your value system will look different than other people's, and giving him space to reveal it, and then putting in the practices and the support required to live that out. That is what I'm talking about in these. So, all right, guys, I kind of feel sad on the inside because I've only got one more live left, but it's going to be good. If you guys have any thoughts or questions or concerns, please make sure you reach out to me. You can either put it in the comments or you can send me a personal message. As you'll see on here, I do have linked my calendar. As I shared, I've opened up my calendar for the rest of this weekend to be able to have conversations with you all to see if there is some way that I can support you and what you are trying to do. I'm here for you. And if you feel like you need coaching or counseling in your life this year, and that's something that you really want to do and you want to take that kind of step, book a time to talk to me because I want to talk to you. But other than that, that's it. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm not going to come as late tomorrow. So it's probably going to be more like a noon thing. You may be just catching a replay or something. That's fine. I know it's Saturday. And then after that, like I mentioned, after my birthday on Sunday, all of these videos are going to be coming down. So if you want to watch the replays, please watch them over the next couple of days so that if you have questions or concerns, you can ask me about them during the live tomorrow. But I love y'all so much. Keep me posted, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.